Hello, welcome back to coverage of Grand Prix Las Vegas. I'm Gabby Sports, joined by Luis Scott Vargas, and we have Thiago Saporito versus Steve Rubin. The matchup is black-red versus black-green. But, Luis, can you tell us a little bit more about Thiago's match? Or, sorry, deck.
Yeah, he's got a Blighted Bat and a Pathmaker Initiate in play, an Electrify and a Wonder and Death in his graveyard.
That was very useful.
They're both playing aggressive decks.
Yeah.
Thiago's is more aggressive than Steve's. Steve's deck's actually a little more aggressive than I give it credit for looking at the deck list. It just turns out he's got enough combat tricks and low drops that even though he's got multiple claw speeds, it actually plays out like a beatdown deck. Though, in this case, I like Steve's position. He was able to curve out, and the Naga Vitalist certainly played a big part in that, I'm assuming, with Vizier of the Menagerie and Colossopede kind of outclassing all of Thiago's just 2-power creatures here.
All right, so using the Vizier, the Menagerie ability, gets to cast that Naga Vitalist for free. Or not for free, but from the top of his deck, so it's a free card.
Card-wise, it is free. It's kind of like the opposite of Memnite. It costs you mana, but it doesn't cost you a card.
Yeah. The Pathmaker jumping in front of the Exemplar. We're going to see a trade between those two. But Thiago's life total diminishing quickly over here, down to 7.
Yeah, and
Colossopede and Vizier the Menagerie hit pretty hard. And now follow-up Baleful Omit, putting a counter on one of the Vitalists.
And that Baleful Omit is really going to put that nail in Thiago's coffin here. It's just very difficult to raise 4 points of lifelink. Steve also has supernatural stamina in hand, so kind of protected from removal spell. And Steve's just winning the race anyway with Colossopede and Vizier just kind of getting in there. So Thiago's in a pretty rough spot here.
It's pretty nice in this black-green decks that managed to play Naga Vitalist, how you can just put the counters on them, because you really didn't care about having them at all. That big Baleful Omit is very good on this board.
Yeah, we've seen this play a lot from Steve. And that is, in fact, part of the reason Naga Vitalist is a 1-2 instead of a 1-1. It's just so you get the little additional synergy with -1/-1 counters.
Blighted Bat attacking, dropping Steve down to 11.
I like the new technology that Vizier has over Oracle Moldiah War. Instead of revealing the top card, you just get to look at the top card. So your opponent just doesn't know what you have drawn the entire time.
Initiate's Companion. Once again, basically like drawing a card because it was on top of Steve's deck. All right, and the whole team is getting, well, minus the Vitalists.
Actually, I don't think
look.
it doesn't seem that bad to attack with the Vitalist that actually has power. Seems like it could be a reasonable addition to the squad because the only bad block is Miasmic Mummy picking off that Naga Vitalist, but that leaves Thiago taking lethal otherwise if he wants to do that. So it seems like Naga Vitalist can attack here.
Steve also has a wealth of lands right now, so it's not like he's, throwing away a land for nothing. Quote-unquote land. Yeah, it's getting in there. So Omit, Colossopede, Vizier, and the Naga Vitalist in the red zone.
So if Thiago has no tricks in hand, he has to double chump here. And that's not going to work out very well. If he has a trick here, like he has an Electrify, because he has 3 copies, or he has 1 Electrify, he's already used it actually, he has 3 Emberhorn Minotaurs instead. Looking at Thiago's deck, he doesn't have a ton of instants that are relevant here. It's going to be hard for Thiago to survive this turn in any reasonable fashion.
All right, so it looks like the Initiate in front of the Colossopede.
And at this point, Steve can just pass, and Thiago dies to the two unblocked attackers.
Between the Omet and the Vizier.
Aha.
Oh, so he's flinging.
So Fling will threaten to deal 4 damage to the Baleful Omet, so that will make it so Steve doesn't have lethal.
And he gets to get it back from the graveyard too, thanks to that supernatural stamina.
Bit of a combo there.
I mean, he is using a lot of cards to try to survive through this attack. Let's see what Steve can do about this. Looks like he has a supernatural stamina also.
And that can save the Baleful Omet, though. The Fling will stop the Omet from dealing damage this turn. So.
Yeah, and the Miasmic Mummy is able to eat that Naga Vitalist.
This still worked out quite well for Steve, though that Baleful Omet should be tapped thanks to supernatural stamina. Looks
I
like
think there's a chance that Steve might have looked one card underneath.
Yeah, it looks like he might have seen the second card from the top. In which case, looking at extra cards, game rule violation and
The Baleful Omet should be tapped.
So I believe if he did look at the second from the top, he just keeps the top card, shuffles the rest, and then puts the top card back on top.
Yep, and just as you said it, the top card is currently off screen, but it has been moved to the side. Steve shuffling the rest of his deck.
And for those who are confused, of which there are many, the Baleful Omet put a -1/-1 counter on the Naga Vitalist that then died to Miasmic Mummy. So that was, in fact, handled correctly. And Steve's top card goes where it's supposed to, which is where it's supposed to remain.
Yeah, and that's not enough to do it. So Steve Rubin up a game here versus Thiago Saporito in the finals of GP Las Vegas.
Steve's black-green deck trucking on, like you said, up a game, and well, you can't feel too bad about this position. Thiago's got slightly smaller creatures than him, and even though Thiago's deck is a little bit more aggressive, it doesn't have a low enough curve to take as much advantage of it as he might want. Thiago has 2 Pathmaker Initiate, and not a whole lot of 2-drops in black. So just the 1 Miasmic Mummy. So Thiago's not going to be able to curve out and really make it so Steve is on the back foot, to the degree that he would like.
Which of these decks would you like better, just in the matchup in general?
I think I like Steve's. Steve has the 2 Naga Vitalists, and they both have a lot of mid-range cards. And then Steve has Supernatural Staminas and slightly bigger creatures, which I think are going to work out pretty well. It's funny that didn't peg Steve's deck as one that utilizes combat tricks quite as well as it has, so I like how that's played out. Plus, Steve also has some generally powerful cards like Edifice of Authority and Stir the Sands. Looks like Steve is sighting in Haze of Pollen.
Did you actually catch him right now?
Yeah, that's what it looked like. I think that he may...
What do you think is the goal, like to counter a fling, sort of?
Well, it doesn't counter a fling itself.
Is it just combat damage?
I think it's just combat damage.
Let me look at it.
But if Thiago has a lot of combat tricks, then it could stop that.
Yeah, it is combat damage.
I would have never cast this card or had it in my deck, so... this is me speculating.
I mean, I guess if he's hoping that he can just like fade him for 1 attack and then he just cracks back and kills him.
Yeah,
it is kind of a get you card, right?
It is. Thiago just has the 1 Supernatural Stamina, so he doesn't have a ton of combat tricks. I guess if just Steve thinks this is going to be a flat-out race, then Haze of Pollen has some merit.
All right, and we're heading here into Game 2. The finals of GP Las Vegas. Thiago Saporito versus Steve Rubin. See if we can take a look at Thiago's hand.
Well, he's got Liliana's Mastery in 3 lands at the very least, so that already
That's a
seems
pretty
like
good
it's
start.
well on its way to a keep.
Both players have kept very quickly, and we're off to the races. Festering Mummy for Steve Rubin, followed up by Pathmaker by Thiago, and a pass back to Steve.
And if Steve has the turn 2 Naga Vitalist, then things are going to look pretty good. Something's happening.
Looks like they're figuring out turn order. Or they're talking about at least what happened in which turn. I think everything's fine. All right, moving along. No play from Steve. Pass back to Thiago. So Thiago's cycling that Wandering Death. There's going to be a trade. Festering Mummy doesn't get to put a counter on anything. Follow up with a Swamp. Steve cycling that Sandworm.
Thiago's got some nice rares. He has Insult to Injury and Liliana's Mastery in hand, so could see him end up in a spot where he's just overpowers Steve, assuming he can draw lands. It looks like he's managing to. Well, he's also
lands running away over here.
Lands.
Thiago did cycle that Horror of the Broken Lands. Also just kind of cycled his lands from the battlefield.
Flavorfully, he found a land with that Horror of the Broken Lands.
Vizier of the Menagerie. So you get to look at the top card.
So Thiago really needs to draw a land here to play Liliana's Mastery. It looks like he missed, and Emberhorn Minotaur. So
that's not too shabby.
It's not. Steve has an opportunity though, because if he has a combat trick, he can get very far ahead here. And Emberhorn Minotaur is just really not the play Thiago wanted to make compared to something like Liliana's Mastery.
Of course. So there's a block, and I think he has a Synchronized Strike in hand. But he's going to let it go. So those two are going to trade off. Bye-bye the Amit and the Minotaur. Follow up a Colossopede.
Electrify the draw for Thiago. Can't kill Colossopede. He can take out the Vizier, but if Steve... this is the turn where Steve needs to draw a creature. If he can draw something big...
He drew Supernatural Stamina for the turn.
All right.
Colossopede getting in there.
That's a start.
Thiago down on 9. Edifice of Authority. On top for Thiago. Land? Not a land!
Well, Thiago's in a lot of trouble now because...
Oh,
Wasteland
Scorpion.
Had Thiago not played a Scorpion, had he played a different creature, Steve actually has 4 points of extra combat trick damage here, so he may have let the Colossopede through, but now, of course, with that Scorpion, Thiago's undoubtedly going to block because of Death Touch. Steve can still use Supernatural Stamina. Colossopede still comes back, but that Edifice is on 1. If Steve can put 2 more brick counters on it, it can blank the Scorpion as a blocker, and then Steve doesn't have to use Supernatural Stamina. So this is kind of close.
Do you think it's worth waiting? It is a bit from now.
My inclination would be to attack, I think. It's very close, though.
Well, bam. Block. Stamina. Stamina!
All right. Well,
All right, they both come back. Follow up with an Exemplar. All right, and Thiago found his 5th land, and here comes Liliana's Mastery. Brings 2 zombies, but is also a zombie lord. I don't really know what to call it, but it does beef these zombies +1/+1. So these are both 3/3s.
Steve drew the Haze of Pollen, though. I think he probably wishes he had the Shed Weakness now. I suppose Haze can't
Wait, do you know that he took out Shed Weakness for it?
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
Yeah, so cycling that Haze of Pollen. Find another land.
And now I think Steve is close enough to Edifice that he should just pass and wait until he can
Blank the Scorpion.
blank the Scorpion.
Thiago's drawing a land for the turn. It's a mountain. Mount another 5 mana. Ooh, Archfiend of Ifnir. 3 counters now on that Edifice. So now this can be used on the offense, basically.
And it's going to be effective here. So, wow, Steve drew Stir the Sand. So that was an important draw. He has to worry about Thiago's cycling cards here with that Archfiend in play. Does Thiago have a lot of those? He doesn't have a ton. So,
And we don't know if he has any cyclers in hand right now. You are not kidding. Thiago's rares are really nice here.
yeah. And he has Insult to Injury in hand, which can set up a pretty nice turn.
All right, so Steve firing off the Stir the Sands, bringing in 3 zombies.
And Steve may want to keep, yeah, he's keeping a Swamp in hand to play around Miasmic Mummy, even though that means he can't activate Edifice of Authority this turn. So, luckily for Steve, even Insult to Injury is not going to be quite enough to take him out here. Thiago can cast Insult, making it so all of Thiago's sources that deal damage deal double damage. Cast Injury, take out Exemplar of Strength. Attack for 10 in the air with Archfiend, but it's just not going to be enough to kill Steve. Yeah, I think even though Steve was playing around Mummy by not playing his Swamp, he may end up regretting that here.
All right, so here we go. Thiago casting an Insult. Sources now deal double the damage for him this turn.
They had the full art of Insult to Injury at the original Magic Show art here.
Yeah, we got to see that. That was actually really cool because the card is really long. It's hard to see the context of that when you see it in card form.
So Steve has to block one of these cards, otherwise he takes 22 and then Insult to Injury or rather Injury specifically deals the last 4 because the zombies are 3/3s and all damage is doubled from Thiago's sources.
Insult to Injury is great. This card's busted.
Is very, very strong, and Steve being at 26 meant that he didn't play that land because he felt like it was unlikely that Thiago would be able to finish him off, but so I actually think Steve's going to win. So if he chumps like this, he takes 16 damage, he falls to 10. Thiago uses the Aftermath, Injury, takes out Exemplar. Steve falls to 6. Steve untaps, uses Edifice of Authority, makes it so Wasteland Scorpion can't block, then attacks with everything and has Synchronized Strike to win the game.
Yeah, you're right. He has that Synchronized Strike in a Swamp.
So I actually think this works out. This works out in Steve's favor. I think this is gonna. I think we might have a Grand Prix champion here. Steve debating what he's going to be playing around. So it looks like these are the blocks he's lined up.
All right, so away go those zombies. Following up with 2. Flinging a zombie. Oh, and it kills a Colossipede.
Oh, well, that definitely changes things. So Fling dealing double damage because of Insult to Injury. So now Steve can use the Edifice, but he's 1 point short. Synchronized Strike only deals 8 damage. So Steve not quite there unless he has another combat trick.
So Edifice, the Scorpion. And in come the Exemplar and the Zombie, removing a counter, getting him 1 life also.
And so Steve could opt to use Synchronized Strike to drop Thiago to 1, but it doesn't seem particularly advantageous to do so right now. What is the, what is, yeah, it just seems like you're not going to end up wanting to do that.
Yeah, he's choosing not to go for it. He just plays a swamp and passes. They might be confirming life totals here because of the exemplar. Right, so Thiago flashing back, that insult to injury, casting the injury side of things. Deals 2 damage and 2 to Steve Rubin's face, but Steve's going to use a synchronized strike to keep that exemplar from dying. On tap back to Steve. Just 2 lands in hand.
And attacks don't look great for Steve here.
Yeah, he's just passing straight back. Thiago plays a Pathmaker Initiate. Pass back to Steve. Naga Vitalist. Pass to Thiago.
Steve needs to draw another threat here. Though Thiago's not doing a whole lot either.
Edifice activating. Targeting that Archfiend. Ooh, look at that. So he's cycling the Wasteland Scorpion to shrink all of Steve's creatures. The Naga Vitalist was jumping in front of the Pathmaker Initiative, but now it just gets eaten.
Yeah, that was a big turn for Thiago. And things are getting out of control for Steve here.
Blighted Bat.
And Steve just packs them up.
All right, so we're heading into a game 3. Thiago Saporito versus Steve Rubin. Wow, so it looks like it. Thiago really had an awesome comeback there.
Yeah, Thiago wisely chose to use Fling to take out Colosspeed instead of casting Insult to Injury. And that meant Steve didn't have quite enough, even with a Synchronized Strike. Had Steve blocked with 1 fewer zombie, then he would have been able to... Then he would have died to Fling, I believe. He would have gone from 16 to 10 off taking an additional 6 off that zombie token, and Fling plus the Archfiend would have done the last 10. So I think it actually was correctly played on both sides, but that ended up working out well for Thiago.
Sure. There were a lot of really interesting decisions for both players that game.
And Steve on the precipice of winning there. That's always...
He was so close.
Yeah, that's always a frustrating game to lose when you're like a point short or incredibly close to just winning on board, and Thiago was able to hold on there, and it looked like a game that Steve had in the bag, but just didn't quite get there.
You think there's anything that Steve should have or could have done differently there?
Had Steve played the land to use Edifice on the turn that Insult to Injury got cast,
Yeah.
he would have taken a lot less damage, but I actually don't know if that would have opened the door for him getting able
To actually win?
Getting able to win. So, but that would have been different at the very least.
That's always tough, right? Because you want to, you don't want to play right into Mummy knowing that's what makes this hard, right? Because a lot of times you think, well, they could have a Mummy, but in this case, he knows that he has a Mummy in the deck. Not necessarily in hand, but in the 70, not the 75,
Yeah.
the 40.
Well, I'll give you a pass. We covered Modern all day today.
We did. And players are shuffling and getting ready here for the last game of Grand Prix Las Vegas. Parentheses limited.
Nah, these players will probably find a way to draw this game and send us to a game 4.
Wait, are there ways that you can draw right now in limited?
You need an effect that deals damage to both players. I don't know if
Mhm.
I don't know if such a thing exists. Steve keeping looks like a one-lander after a mulligan here.
Oh, he finds another forest. Swamp for Thiago. Pathmaker initiate. Always has a Pathmaker initiate on turn 2 every single time.
Oh,
Steve's going to be cycling that Sandworm, but no further land. And it looks like he has even a Colossal Beat in hand, so he's going to have to be making some land drops before. Yeah, Edifice somewhere in there. Cursed Minotaur, and Thiago's presenting a quick clock here. Okay, he's found a swamp. Blighted Bat makes an appearance.
yeah, but that one-turn delay might be fatal, especially since Thiago has Magma Spray in hand, has other cards he can curve out with.
So both of them are getting in. All right, Pathmaker Initiate and the Blighted Bat are going to trade. He's going to follow up with a Wasteland Scorpion. All right, let's see what Steve can do here. Edifice, but not even the ability to activate it. 4th land and a Minotaur for Thiago, and attacking for 5. Steve at 10. This Edifice is going to stop one of the attackers, but he's taking so much damage per turn. Looks like he's found a Kudu, put a counter on itself. Can't even activate the Edifice.
And that's going to be tough. Steve is not really making any forward progress here, even though he's trading. And wow,
Oh,
fling.
and there's a fling? Wow, and that's just game. Thiago Saporito is the winner here at Grand Prix Las Vegas. Congratulations to him. That was a
Steve
very...
just tossed his deck on the
Yeah. I mean, it's always such a bummer to lose, especially if